Hello, hello. Thank you all for joining. Hope everyone is doing well. We're gonna get started in the next 3 to 5 minutes here, just waiting for a couple more people. My name is Vivian, as you guys are aware, and I'm going to be talking to you guys about a road less traveled. Hopefully we have some great questions from the audience, and I'll be looking at the chat as well and keeping note as we round up the conversation. But I really want this to be a little bit more informal. I want to answer any questions you may have about technology and being in the tech space. My expertise is in software sales, so please let's try to keep the questions to that type of questioning, if you will. But we're going to get started in a little bit. Why don't we figure out how everyone is doing and where everybody's at? So if you're in the chat, please write down your city and then put one word to describe how you're feeling right now. So your city and then one word to describe how you're feeling. Awesome. Takia, you said New York City. I love New York, and you're feeling excited. I love that. I'm feeling pretty pumped up too. I've been looking forward to this event. Kevin, Tuscaloosa. I hope I said that right. That's awesome. I've never been there, but I'm sure it's fun. I'm sure it's nice. I love that you're feeling energized. Thank you so much for joining. Toby from Baltimore-ish, so not technically Baltimore. That's interesting. I'd like to know more on that, but you're feeling excited too. I love it. Queen, welcome. Thank you for joining. And you're from Atlanta. So glad to be here. You guys, that's my best friend. So of course she's going to say that. Jennifer from Dallas. Awesome. We got a lot of people from all over here. And happy birthday to you. Come on, you guys drop a balloon or something in the chat telling Jen happy birthday. That's awesome. Thank you so much for joining on your birthday. I hope this is meaningful for you. DC. Oh, I love DC. Hey, Madupe. Super excited. I love it. You're welcome, Jennifer. This is awesome. So we've got a pretty spread out view when we think about the people that are joining from different cities. I'll give a little bit of background in a little bit here, but I'm from Atlanta, born in New Jersey, so Newark, raised in Atlanta, lived here most of my life. I'll talk a little bit about details on that too. So thank you for joining. And if you're just joining, what we're doing is just, you're going to state where you're located and then give me one word to describe how you're feeling right now. I hope the other sessions have been meaningful for you guys. This is day 1 of the summit. So this is a 2-day event. I'm hoping that you guys come back tomorrow as well. Thank you guys so much for joining again. I appreciate you. So we'll just give it 2 more minutes here. Alberto, thank you so much for joining. You feel awesome. I love it. And where are you coming from, Alberto? That is awesome, Lagos. I'm actually Nigerian myself. I'm Igbo, if that means anything, but yes, Lagos, that's awesome. Thank you so much for joining. Ebony, Dallas, Texas. I love it. Everybody's feeling energized and excited. That's really good, especially for a beautiful Saturday such as this. I'm not sure how it's feeling weather-wise for you guys, but Atlanta is pretty bipolar when we think about weather. So I see the sun, but it's probably really cold. Haven't been outside yet. People always ask, like, how do you dress when you come to Atlanta? I say, bring your pants, but also bring your shorts and also bring your, big snow jacket. You just never know what you're going to get. Awesome. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Again, I'm super excited for you guys joining me today. I want to make this very informal. So I do have a couple of slides. I hope I don't bore you. I promise not to bore you, actually. So we'll go through some slides and then I'll be looking at questions in the chat, but please, if you don't mind, I'll answer those at the end of the conversation. Also, if you'd like to directly ask me a question on our virtual stage here, just raise your hand and ask to join that, and I'll be glad to put you up so you can verbally ask your questions. So I'll start with the questions that I see in the chat, and then if anyone has something that they'd like to say or ask me verbally, feel free to ask to join the conversation. Perfect. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started here. My name is Vivian, as you guys know. I have a few familiar faces on here, but some of you guys are new to me. I'm based out of Atlanta, born in New Jersey, raised in Atlanta most of my life. And today I'm going to be talking about the less traveled world of technology sales. And part of this is I really want to understand if you guys have any familiarity with technology sales. And if you don't, it's fine, because this is why I'm here. And then also, I'd like to understand if you're interested in getting to the technology space and then have this natural curiosity for sales. Tell me some of the biggest hurdles that you think you would face, but I want to get those in question form at the end of this conversation. All right, I'm just going to share my screen. Awesome. I'm hoping everyone can see my screen. If someone could confirm in the chat, that'd be awesome, actually. If you see a blue burst on the screen, let me know. Perfect. Thank you so much. Thanks, Toby. Thanks, Takia. Thanks, Kevin. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and get started. So the name of our workshop today is called Technically Techie. And it's kind of a play on words because typically, a techie as someone that is a software engineer or in QA testing or some sort of product, right? That's on the technical side. But I'm here to redefine what that really means to be in technology and in the tech industry. Funny enough, people always, there are very combating views on this, but I'm going with the dictionary here. On the dictionary, it says that a techie, yes, techie is a word. It was coined, the 1960s? And of course, it started in Silicon Valley, then it spread it out. But the definition of a techie is a person who is an expert or enthusiastic about technology. What people don't realize is there is a comma after that, not a period. If there was a period, it might very well so be for, the engineering organizations or things like that we already know of. But there's a comma, and it says especially computing. Now, what that tells me is that being a techie, yes, you have this enthusiasm for technology, but it doesn't stop at the typical ways that we view techies. There is an open outlet there for people who are in non-technical roles, and we'll get to those roles in a little bit. But I wanted to give that as a caveat. So who's this techie? I already talked about where I was born and raised, but to be honest, I've been selling all of my life, and I'm Nigerian. I'm not sure how many of you guys are from African or Caribbean backgrounds, but typically the parents are very strict and they always have to question why you need money. Like, who does that? So I always had to think about ways to persuade or kind of get my dad, for example, to buy me ice cream or let me go somewhere. There was always something I had to do. There was even a point in time where I had to create a PowerPoint on why I wanted something. So trust me, I've been doing this for a long time without even realizing it. But it really started in high school, funny enough. And I don't recommend this for anybody who has children or who will have children and you know, trying to make their own money. But I sold snacks in school. I was like the candy girl. You can come to me for chips, 2 for $1 chips, Capri Sun. That was me. Eventually got caught, but it showed me like, wow, I'm really good at acquiring interest and getting people to purchase with me. And sales is everywhere, to be quite honest. So that's kind of the backstory with that. I was actually going to college for chemistry pre-med. So I was en route to be a pediatrician. And part of this was Africans don't know anything else. African parents, I'll say, typically don't see anything past being a doctor, being a lawyer, or something like that, or engineer even, right? So you can imagine when I was transitioning to professional selling degree, which I'll talk about, my mom and dad were like, what? Like, are you sure? Like, this is not what we were expecting from you. Especially my dad literally conditioned me to think that I wanted to be a doctor. So funny enough, freshman year, I was just like, okay, I like chemistry, but not this much. Like organic chemistry is beating my butt, right? And I was like, well, what do I really like? And I realized I love business. Now, before I got into the professional selling degree, I was actually marketing and business management double major. It wasn't until I joined an organization called Delta Sigma Pi, which is a business fraternity. If any of you are in the group, please feel free to put that in the chat. I'd love to see where all my brothers are. But yes, that is a business fraternity. And I met so many different people in that organization. Obviously, the brotherhood is for a lifetime. But aside from that, there was one particular girl in Delta Sigma Pi with me. I'll never forget her, Sarah Birch. And she was like, why aren't you in sales? Like, why aren't you trying to get a professional selling degree? I was like, what? Like, what is that? I've never even heard about a professional selling degree before, let alone that selling was actually a thing more than door to door, right? And I'm sure you guys have all these preconceived notions as well about the selling world and what that looks like. So when she started to get me familiar with the professional selling department and, you know, some of the leaders and some of the sponsors that were sponsoring us at Kennesaw State, I was like, wow, I didn't know this was a real thing. So only a handful of schools actually have this type of degree, but we'll talk in a little bit about how you don't necessarily need a degree to be in software sales. To be in tech, there are some companies that don't require you to have a degree at all, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So here I am, I graduated with a double major in marketing and professional selling. And then I started working immediately with a company called Gartner, which is an IT research and advisory firm. And I got that position from being in the professional sales organization at KSU. So, you know, again, you don't need this type of degree. You can actually have a psychology degree, a chemistry degree, any type of degree, as long as those skills are transferable. So we'll get to that. I moved to Southwest Florida, which I lived in Fort Myers, and it's almost, no offense to anyone who lives there, who was raised there, but it just wasn't my cup of tea. So I eventually moved back to Atlanta, leaving Gartner and starting with a company called Marketo. One thing I'll point out here is I never applied for any of the jobs that I actually have, just thinking about it. Even at Gartner, when I got that right after college, it was because they were sponsors for the sales organization at my school, and they were, you know, looking for talent, right? So that typically happens with a lot of sponsors that are looking at universities like that. But I say that to say, once you're able to get just one little toe, if you're able to get one toe into the tech world, it's typically a lot easier to move around from there, considering tech, right? I don't know how that is for other corporations. And then lastly, I am coming up with my 5-year anniversary in tech. It'll be 5 years in January, and I'm really excited about that. So I did want to showcase that. Now let's get into some of the quick facts, right? Like what is happening when we think about the tech world today. And these are all credited at below, so you can reference these online. They have plenty of articles on these facts. But what I found interesting is that 67% of tech companies are made up of less than 5% of Black people, Black individuals that are working in tech, right? And that's for any role. Now, that may sound really small to you, but this is a step up considering just 2 years ago, it was 2 or 3%. So we're moving up inch by inch, but we need this to be scalable. There is obviously a gap for Black and brown individuals being in the tech world. And part of this discussion is to bring awareness to what this all looks like. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Per the Brookings Institute, just 6.8% of computing and math-related jobs are held by Black and Latin people today. So aside from the non-technical roles like sales, and we'll get into that in a little bit, for the actual technical roles in tech, there's only 6.8% that actually studied for jobs like that. So there's a gap all around, right? Technical and non-technical, it's there. And then lastly, 79% of sales reps are Caucasian. Now, I wanted to put this in, the presentation because I'm obviously focusing on software sales. And when I look at this statistic here, I think, well, that's crazy, because if my people knew what I know about software sales, this would be a lot different when we think about the types of individuals that are in this landscape. And just so you guys are aware, typically the makeup of someone in software sales is someone between the ages of 30 and 50, male, white. It's recently, because of the startup culture that we're experiencing with a lot of tech companies, you're going to see a lot more younger individuals in these roles. But for software sales particularly, you wonder why some people stay in a role for 10, 20 years. Is obviously something about that particular role. And this is one of those types of roles. So I'm going to come out of presentation mode really quickly. You're going to see that blue burst again. I want people to tell me in the chat, what are some of the non-technical roles that you're aware of in the technology space today? Any and every. And if you don't know, please chat, I don't even know. Awesome. Yep. Software sales, customer success. Keep them coming. HR. Techie said, I have no idea. Yep, that's why you're here. We're going to talk about that. HR, yep. Design. Well, UX design. Yeah. That can go either way, though. That's a muddy water, some would say. Business development, marketing. Yep, Richard, spot on. Product management. Business analyst. Yep, similar roles to that. Absolutely, Kim. Customer service, also customer support. Financial analyst. Yeah. All right, I think these are really good examples, actually. So you guys are aware of those different types of roles, I do want to talk a little bit more about that. So you guys are spot on. Most of the ones you see in the chat are correct. There are so many non-technical positions in the tech world. You have to know this. And so why aren't we in tech? Why is it only 5% lack of knowledge? So let's talk a little bit about that. Non-technical in tech: marketing roles, customer success, accounting and finance, sales operations, product management, legal, sales, business enablement, recruitment, philanthropy roles, real estate and commercial contracting. These are just a few comparable to the list of non-technical positions in tech. And so starting from the top, marketing, obviously marketing is everywhere. We're always going to need marketing in tech. And depending on what type of organization it is that you're considering in the technology space, the marketing team is going to have a very, very close alignment to the sales organization in different ways. So marketing and sales go hand to hand. Customer success. So I didn't define the marketing role because I think that's pretty much, understood already. But customer success. So what this is, at least in the companies that I've worked at, is this particular person is owning a book of business, and that book of business is current clients. And what they're doing is ensuring the adoption and success of that client for the technology that was sold to them. So let's say, for example, the company Salesforce. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that company, but they are the leading customer relationship management platform organization. So this company, when we think about customer success, that particular person would be the one working with that group of clients and ensuring that they are happy, because essentially it's one thing to sell this, whatever you're selling, this platform, Salesforce, is another thing to retain that company that you're working with. So that is kind of the role for the customer success person. Accounting and finance. Obviously, after you get some sort of finance degree or anything like that, you're thinking, I want to work for the Big Four, or, I want to get into consulting, or, organizations like that, financial specific organizations. But what people are starting to see is that finance is very big in tech. Obviously, you sell it, then we have to have the team kind of managing all of those things. There are so many roles in finance that you can apply for in tech. So I definitely urge you guys to look into that as well. Sales operations. So this is pretty much the team working hand in hand with the sales team. Is not as simple as selling something, done, go. It's a very intricate process. And to be honest, the role that you'll typically find in technology is a B2b sales role. So that's a business to business sales role. And that's what I've been doing since I've started. But this particular role, you're working with people that may or may not understand your company already. You have to take a very consultative approach to the way that you're getting them to work with you guys. So the sales operations team, what they do is ensure that the contracts are looking right. When we think about terms and conditions, they're able to eyeball that and ensure things are well. And they're pretty much just there to ensure that you are operating optimally for your role. Product management. So this one is a little iffy depending on which company you go to. I did end up putting it in the non-technical bucket because product, yes, you can be a product manager whereby you're agnostically talking about technology. You're more so focused on innovating on the product, not necessarily building the product. So that's why that comes in. But then you do also have some companies that the product manager would be a technical role, and they would be the one, innovating as well. So it's different for every organization, but for the most part, it is considered non-technical. Legal, obviously, when you graduate with your law degree, you want to go to a big firm, right? It's crazy. You will find that you not only have more job security in tech, being in legal, but you're also typically paid more. as we're starting to see, a lot of these traditional, types of jobs are getting a little saturated. So we're finding that people are starting to take those skills that they've learned in law school and, different law firms that they've worked with and are coming to tech. Sales and business enablement, right? This is kind of where I live. This is the world that I live in. So depending on what product you're selling, you might have to be technically agnostic, but as long as you have great business and sales acumen, you should be fine to thrive in this type of role. So this is the bulk of the conversation. We'll get deeper into that in a little bit. Recruitment. So I kind of look at this as a form of sales as well, because you're technically selling people on why they should join your company. So this is also a great role for anyone to join and kind of get involved in. Typically the organization that you're in is in people ops or any type of HR department for the company. But yeah, this is another awesome role where you do pre-pandemic get to travel as well to the schools or universities that you're trying to, get talent from. And you do a lot of cool stuff, actually. This is a pretty cool role that I would encourage anyone to look at. Philanthropy roles. Funny enough, people wouldn't think that, okay, I want to be in a nonprofit type of role, I would go to tech. A lot of these big companies that you guys know today in Silicon Valley, they have a philanthropy arm where, okay, they've made great money, they want to give back, right? So they have organizations within the organization that allow them to do efforts like, giving back or starting affinity groups or things like that. And then lastly, real estate and commercial contracting. So most of these companies, pre-pandemic again, have to have a place to work, right? So when we think about office space, you'll have a lot of people with real estate and commercial contracting backgrounds in tech to acquire the right location. So when we think about a company expanding their locations and then also working with those vendors to make sure that the office space is great for the company. So that's my spill on the non-technical and tech. Please put any questions in the chat if I missed something, or if you have any more questions on these few. Now, continuing along here, I wanted to put some more fun facts. A lot of people don't know that much about tech and why people are staying there and moving and transitioning into the tech space. So did you know that tech companies typically pay 20 to 50% more than the average corporation? Now, I think the average salary in corporate right now is what, 40, 50K? Think about 20 to 50% on top of that when we think about some of these non-technical roles that you can be getting engaged with. And this is seen majorly in tech companies specifically. But other than that, this is a pretty good reason for you guys to explore further. Software sales development representatives make anywhere from 40 to 100K annually. Now, I put a very big range because it differs for each company and the earning potential, but you'll find that people at a very entry-level position are making anywhere from 40 to 100K. And so to give you a little background on what software sales development, SDR is, software development sales representative, this particular role is typically entry-level. So you're going to have your recent college grads, you're going to have people that have just transitioned to technology and want to get into software sales. This is the role that you start at. And you're essentially acquiring interest from, depending on what type of SDR you are, but for the most part, from new logos. So new companies that haven't signed on with the company that you're selling with, right? So what you're doing is driving interest. You're being creative in your approach when you're thinking about getting that common interest and the lead generation. And then once you've acquired that interest, you then pass it off to the account executive, which I'll explain in a little bit. Excuse me, and the account executive will take it from there. But those types of roles are typically making 40 to even 100 is the highest I've seen it for that particular role. And you stay in there for, status quo is 2 years, so that you really have a good grasp on the company at that point, and then the initial or foundational parts of sales. Now, secondly here, when we think about account executives or account managers is also another name for it, this particular role is someone that is consultative selling, right? And this person is typically end-to-end in the sales cycle. So what that means is you're probably doing some of the responsibilities of the SDR, where you're acquiring interest and you're trying to drive people to the organization, or you have a book of business that you already own. And the book of business just means current clients for the company that you're with. So most times you're doing both of those. You're hunting and farming, which just means hunting, I'm acquiring interest from new companies, and then farming is I am sustaining the interest of my current companies and growing them, expanding them. So your role is simply put to sell, right? You are the one that is ensuring that your customers are happy first and foremost. You're also in charge of driving that interest that we talked about. And then you're in charge of creating an opportunity out of the person that you're working with, and then ultimately having them negotiated and agreeing to work with your company. There's a lot of steps that goes into this, but I'm trying to be as succinct as possible so that I don't confuse anyone. But please, again, put questions in the chat if you have them. But this particular role, you can start making anywhere from 80 to 500K annually. And I mean that very conservatively, because if you know a thing or two about sales, commissions are involved. The thing about B2B software sales is that you not only have a salary, but you have a commission. And that commission is attained based off of the quota that you have, right? So to be as simplistic as possible, when you have your salary and your commission, most of the time, your commission is uncapped, meaning that there's no restriction to your earning potential. So you definitely want to be more favorable to tech companies that are having that type of notion. I'm not aware of any that have it capped at this time in tech, but there might still be a few thinking in that way. But what this means is that 80 to 500, again, is broad, but the reason it's so broad is because of the earning potential is being uncapped. But to be honest, that 80, for example, is a mixture of your salary and your commission. So potentially it might be a 50-50 split, 70-30. Every organization does it differently. But what the definition of the commission and the salary is called on-target earnings. So the OTE, on-target earnings, is what I'm talking about here when I say 80 to 500K. One thing I want to note here is I put 500K, but I really should have put an infinite, because again, there's no stop to what you can earn. But I know some people in my same role, just in a maybe higher segment, maybe enterprise sales, that are making $1 million a year. Like, that's absurd to think about, but I hone in on that because you don't hear about a lot of roles in corporate that you can even make more than 200 or 300K unless you're an executive, right? Or have some type of equity in the company. I want to also caveat that. But other than that, as an individual contributor, to be making $1 million out of a corporate company, that's typically unheard of. So I do want to let you guys know that as well. Ever-changing work experience. So when you think about a position being mundane, software sales is anything but that. You are always on your toes. You are always thinking outside of the box. You are always doing something. And the great thing about this is it's kind of like you're an entrepreneur because you're owning that book of business. You are the one that has the chance to change your own fate, right? So I think that element kind of goes hand in hand with the earning potential, because as you know, of course, as you become successful as an entrepreneur, that earning potential is limitless. So when I think about an entrepreneurial type of position in the tech space or in the corporate space, technology sales in tech is that ideal type of position. So imagine what doors that can open for you just to have made that type of money. So multi-threaded relationships, right? What you'll find is that when you're in a corporate company, even, I won't even just say tech, there are politics played, there are roles you have in the organization, and that is really another conversation. I don't want to get too deep into that, but you want to be multi-threaded, which just means having multiple levels in your approach to how you fit in the culture. So when we think about you being the individual contributor, obviously having a relationship with your manager, but having a great relationship with your manager's manager, and potentially all the way up to the VP, so that people have visibility on you. And that comes naturally just being in sales, to be honest. Networking is natural and scalable, right? And so what this means is, again, I talked a little bit about not really having to apply for a job since I've started in this space. But that kind of goes back to that, right? Because once people are aware of you, or if you're coming from a technology company, it's a little easier for you to transition to the next technology company. So networking is typically natural and it's scalable. It doesn't stop, right? Again, get that little toe in the door and opportunities are endless. And then also, this is something that a lot of people don't know and that they're most fearful about. I get a lot of people that say, I don't have any experience in sales. I don't even have experience in corporate, so I don't think I can, get into a position in tech. But what you'll find, at least for software sales, is starting off entry level, you typically need little to no experience. So we understand that people like college grads are coming straight from college and they don't have a corporate experience yet. So a lot of startups, more specifically, and some tech companies are okay with that. So just know that, and that should take away fear that you might have had by getting into tech. I do want to talk a little bit about how my life has changed as I got into the tech space. I had no realization of this type of field before I graduated, right? Just up until my senior year when I transitioned to sales, that I understand the access that it would provide for me, to be honest. So when I think about how my life has changed, network on a trilly. So I say that in a sense of my network is expanded to infinity. And I say that confidently, knowing that it's going to continue to scale because of the connections that I've made at my position. And then also with other people that I get to meet in the tech industry. So you're going to start to meet and mingle with different types of people that will give you a broad and expanded network. Application, what's that? So I say that again, because once you're able to drive interest and get yourself into tech, it's really, you don't do applications anymore, because from there you're getting referred, or these recruiters are coming to you. And obviously that comes with the amount of time you've been in the space, but most of the time they're looking at you to, come to their company and provide that same talent that you had at your current one. Residual six-figure salary. So I can proudly say since my, second year of sales, I've been making six figures, right? And I say that because, again, starting at something like an SDR position, you're not going to be making six figures off the bat unless you've completely blown that year out of the works, which I alluded to earlier. You're typically making anywhere from 40 to 100, but it depends on how you perform. But yeah, I make six figures. I'm happy to say that. And it's residual because, again, if you ever wanted to transfer your skills to another company, they're not going to, most of the time, they're not going to pay you less than what you were getting. So you're typically going to keep that going as you start to move and grow within your organizations. Cultivated a work hard, play hard mentality. So, obviously, when you get these amounts of money and as your levels change, there are things that you can do, you have more access to, such as traveling and buying luxury things if that's your thing, or investing, right? So work hard, play hard, meaning you have to work. This isn't an easy job. There's definitely a lot of grit that goes into it. And we'll talk about some of those traits here, but there's definitely a lot of things that go into being in the software sales space. But if you're able to perform, you're able to make the money and you're able to play. So it really helped me develop this work hard, play hard. And depending on who you're working with, a lot of the cultures exhibit a work hard, play hard culture, which means that they're having happy hours, or they're doing certain events, or there's always something going on. So just always keep that in mind when you think about tech. Luxury townhome. I was able to close on my home this year. I'm really excited about that, but none of that would have been possible without, first of all, God, but secondly, without the earning potential that I've had from being in software sales. Investment opportunities. So we talk about, having that amount of money eventually and being able to use it for your own, right? Your own good. So investment opportunities include investing in real estate, in the stock market, whatever your cup of tea is, but just know that you get more access to things like that. Finance and business acumen. I say finance because sales is a numbers game as well. You don't necessarily have to be super good with your numbers, but you do have to have a good understanding of those finance elements, such as return on investment, tying business value back to the dollars, right? Why is this company going to work with you? So that acumen comes naturally as you scale up your years in the tech space. Relational and communication skills. So what you'll find is a lot of people already in the software sales space, they speak very well, or they have a good flow to their talk track, they're confident, they have those elements. So you definitely start to build that as you are in the tech space. Colleagues become family, right? But obviously with any company, if you're working 8+ hours every day, every business day, you're going to be seeing or virtually seeing those people most of your life. So why not have, some of those colleagues, not everybody has to be your friend, but you will develop relationships with colleagues that turn out to be very intentional, to be honest. And then lastly, confidence. It's definitely changed my confidence in the way that I walk and talk, because you have to be confident for this position. There's no doubt about it. And that's one of the skills that I list on the next slide here of importance. So let's go ahead and get into it. There are a couple of different traits and skills that you would need to get into this role, but I decided to put this into a top 10. So this is what I feel like are good attributes about a person to be in the software sales space. So the first one, in my opinion, is problem solving. Are you able to look at something and be able to understand why it's broken and fix it? Kind of like an engineering mind, right? Are you thinking in this perspective of, I love the nitty gritty. I love when someone comes to me with an issue and I'm able to tie that issue back to a solution. That's a great sign that you should be looking into something like software sales. Persistence. And this can be good or bad, but in software sales, it's definitely a good thing. Persistence could mean texting your ex 10 times a day. Persistence could also mean you being on top of your studies and you are persistent in what you're studying, right? When we think about school, for example. But that can transfer very greatly to the tech space, because for sales, you're going to get a lot of no's more than yes, right? You're not going to get everybody on board with what you're offering. So you have to be persistent and confident in your approach. So that's one thing I like to highlight. Passion. You have to have a passion for not why you're in B2B software sales, but why you're in the tech space. Obviously, a lot of people might say, oh, for the money, or, things like that. But you want to find out your why and have a passion for that. That should be what is driving you every day at your role. And that's for anybody, so tech or corporate. Organization, right? Are you pretty organized when we think about being able to handle a book of business, for example, and be on top of, the people that you're involved with? Are you able to remember things easily? Like this job, you're pretty much quarterbacking and making sure that you're delegating, at least in my particular role. But when we think about an entry-level role, it's going to be equally important to have that organization element. Relational, are you able to make friends? Do you have a likability about yourself? People buy from people, so trust is the most important piece to any transaction. So if you're able to have that relationship built and you're able to use those skills that you have for relation, that's very transferable. Natural curiosity. So you're the person that you'll question, why is the sky blue? You're not going to take it for face value. So if you're naturally inquisitive and you're always questioning things, that's good, because one of the biggest questions that you're going to ask in your role as a salesperson is why. Why do you think that's happening? Why do you feel that way? Why? You're going to ask why more than once. So having that natural curiosity is definitely a good trait. Tough skin. Again, you're going to get a lot more no's than yeses, right, in this game. So you really want to have a tough skin. You want to be able to handle someone telling you to F off on a call. Poise, right? Because you're going to get that. I've had that, and it sucks, but you kind of expect that you're going to have some people like that. So having a tough skin is important. Ability to take feedback. So if you're someone that thinks you know it all already, I don't necessarily think this is the right field for you. You're constantly going to be learning. You're constantly going to be collaborating. You're constantly going to be working with people. And they want to be able to coach you, especially your manager as an example. So if he or she is providing feedback to you and you're taking that offensively, you're not looking at it from, a foresight perspective, you're going to have issues scaling and growing with that company. And you're also going to have issues growing in tech, period, because you're always going to have to learn, right? Everybody reports to somebody. So being able to take that feedback. Collaborative, like if we're thinking about school days, being in team projects, right? Obviously there's a collaborative component to that. And you have all of these different arms to how you guys achieve that success when we think about a deal. So you really want to be able to be collaborative, reaching out to experts in your organization for what you're looking for, and understanding that sales is a team sport. Goal orientation. So are you goal oriented? Like, obviously this kind of ties back into your why. Like, why are you in tech, and why do you want to make all this money, and why do you want to do all of this? If you have a short or long-term goal established that you're looking to do, that's typically really good, because it keeps you motivated, and you're good to go in that perspective. Awesome. And then the last one is confidence. I use it as the last one because that is the biggest piece that you want to be able to have. You want to be able to say, I'm confident, and people buy more from confident people because it feels like they know what they're sure of. They trust them more, right? So I want to kind of wrap up here. I'm sold, right? How do I get started? That's always been a question for me. So I'm going to provide some golden nuggets. Tap into your network. Start to look at, the friends or the colleagues or the people that you're already connected with, and start to understand if any of them are in the software sales space today. That's always a good start. Leveraging LinkedIn to reach out to people in the role you desire. So one nugget I will provide is that a lot of times LinkedIn is your best friend. When we think about acquiring a job, when we think about networking and connecting with other people, LinkedIn is literally the place to be. So depending on what type of role you're interested in, say your dream job, literally search your dream job, and then search for the particular role. It's typically account executive or sales development representative, and connect with people that look like you, if there is anyone that looks like you. And trying to pick their brain, like, why do they like this role? How is it working for that particular company? So it's technically you interviewing them while hopefully you're also interviewing for the company. Work on your business and sales acumen to get familiar. So I'm really big on YouTube and Googling. So I call it YouTube and Google University, but literally start there. Type software sales roles or software sales responsibilities to get familiar with how this role works and what you could be doing to prep to be in that position. invest in a mentor in the business field. So whether it's a career coach or, a mentor, preferably someone in the consultative selling space that can be an arm for you and can be an expert, for you to learn a lot more about this. And then lastly, join a couple of groups. There are so many different types of groups, not necessarily just for tech sales, but for business as well. And a lot of these are becoming a lot more virtual. So you're able to do these at your fingertips on your laptop. So there's Black and Brown Founders, there's Women in Tech, there's AAISP, there's National Association of Sales Professionals, so many. And most of these, yes, you have to already be in the space, but some of these, they wouldn't mind you joining and learning and hopefully getting a job in it eventually. And also this might be a good way for you to get those mentors that we talked about. Another thing is Brown Sales Collective. So last year, I went to an organization called Afrotech, which is basically where Black and Brown individuals in the tech space come together and network and learn more about tech. So this is an annual thing, typically in the Bay Area, California. And I was just so inspired when I went for the first time by way of my company, so all expenses paid. And I was really excited to see people that look like me. And it was shocking because I was like, yes, this is the 5% that we're seeing. This is it populated over thousands of people. So that's where I got inspired to start Brown Sales Collective. And what this is a career coaching company that provides Black and Brown individuals access to the tech space. Now, my expertise is majorly for software sales positions, but I would be open to doing general consultations of how to get into tech, period, and et cetera. But what I do in this organization is I put together comprehensive training. So I teach you the foundationals of sales, so that when you're interviewing, if you don't have that experience, at least you can say you've went through a boot camp. One-on-one coaching to validate those learnings. So I'm in the process of reorganizing, how I'm going to be giving access to this, but I'm definitely going to be doing individual and group coaching so that we can validate that you are up to date with what you've learned and then hopefully get you to interview and et cetera. Interview prep, including mock interviews, resume revamping, LinkedIn rebranding, and more. Access to my network, which is a big one. And then tech companies working with Brown Sales Collective. So I'm still working on this, business, but I am getting a lot of interest from tech companies. So I'm looking for mentees that are willing to learn a little bit more about the software sales space and work with me. Continuous access to me in a community for BSCs. So the collective part of Brown Sales Collective is what I really want to start to evangelize on. And this would be where, past mentees or current mentees can come together and crowdsource information based on maybe the company that they were able to work with by way of working with me or general questions and more. So there's definitely a community element to Brown Sales Collective. I did want to share a testimony, but I think I'm running a little low on time. So if you do want to learn more about that, please feel free to contact me. I'll share that info in a little bit here. So I'm going to get to questions, but I wanted to provide this. Please screenshot or take a picture of it so you have it. And then if you have any interest on Brown Sales Collective or any of the things that I talked about today, please feel free to email me. That's the best way. And then also connect with me on LinkedIn if you'd like, and then Instagram. Thank you so much, guys. I'm going to go back into the chat and I'm going to answer any questions you guys may have. So awesome. I'm getting some good feedback. Awesome. So, Io is telling me I have a little bit of time left. So I'm going to wrap up here. I can take just a couple of questions. And if there's anything I miss, again, please feel free to contact me. I'm going to start with Dame. I appreciate what you're doing for the culture. Thank you so much. Your enunciation, these are big words. Allocution, articulation, and technical acumen are excellent. Thank you so much. I was a little nervous, so I hope that didn't show. Can you share tips to help improve verbal communication skills? Yeah, So a lot of this will come naturally as you're in the role. But what worked for me is being in an organization, right? There's an organization called Toastmasters, and it's a local organization. It's national, but they have local chapters. So look up Toastmasters. I'll put it here in the chat. They are a good place, an organization to start. So that helps, being with people who are also, kind of scared or have stage fright, or that are scared to speak to the masses or have that level of communication. Toastmasters is definitely helpful. It helped a lot of my mentees that I worked with as well. Another one is taking a deep breath, like before you talk or before you have a big presentation. Taking a deep breath really helps with tonality and how your fluctuation of voice is going. So one thing you want to do, this is one thing I do that I'm going to incorporate in my program, saying, I love my company, right? As an example. If you say, I love my company, it's like, okay, do you? But if you say, I love my company, you see how much of a difference that is, just putting inflections in your voice. So that's another thing that I try to do. Thank you, Dame. Thank you guys so much for the feedback. I hope it was helpful. And I hope I wasn't rambling too much. I get kind of crazy sometimes when I speak. Okay, Toby, you have a great question. You said, how difficult would it be to transition into sales in your 30s? Why does that even matter? It doesn't matter if you're 50 years old. Tech companies take any and every type of people from various backgrounds. So as I talked about in the presentation, I'm not going to say it's not difficult, but I'm saying that you have an access point to sales from being in that entry level position. So definitely don't look at it like it's going to be hard for me because I'm a little older. It's various, you'll be working with people who are 23, and then you'll also be working with people who are 45. All of those different age groups are coming together when we think about the tech space. So definitely not difficult in that sense. I will say you have to be comfortable with the salary that you're getting, being that if you do transition to software sales and you haven't been in the space before, you have to be okay with that starting point and that salary. And the people that you'll be working with are typically those that are recent college grads or have maybe had 1 to 2 years of experience. So if you're just confident and comfortable with that type of scenario for now, because obviously you'll grow and you'll start to scale with the company, then you should be fine. So the first point is not having the imposter syndrome, knowing that you can do it, and then just doing it. And I hope Brown Sales Collective could be one of those avenues that can help you to get a crack at it. Great. Does anyone else have any questions or? Awesome. Well, I will round it out here. Thank you guys so much for joining. I hope this was informative for you guys. Again, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or via email, support@brownsalescollective.com. Thank you guys so much, and we'll talk soon, hopefully.